Strupek marketing agency founder Jonathan Strupek talks with Gary about what it was like to face his fears, quit his job, start his own business, learn how to fail, and why you have to niche down the right way in order to succeed. This podcast is made by marketing entrepreneurs for marketing entrepreneurs. If you love creating something out of nothing and are hopelessly addicted to growth, you're one of us. Stop by each week to hear conversations with leading marketing entrepreneurs where we drill down on things like how to start and double your business, develop systems that can scale, and why success starts with who you are as a person. And after the episode, head over to the Agency Growth Engine server on Discord to talk shop and swap stories with the rest of our community. Let's dive in.
All right, we are live. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'm excited for our guest today. But before we go any further, take a moment and leave a review below. No matter what you're listening on, there's a way for you to leave a review. If you just take 10 seconds and do that, it really helps us out. I know you're hearing this and it's just white noise and you're just like, no, I'm not going to do it. Please, please, please. Go do it. Unless you're driving, don't do it. But other than that, go do it right now. And it really helps us out. Everything here is free. And for us to continue to be able to keep making content that's going to be helpful to you and growing your agency, those reviews really help us and kind of get the word out. So I got Jonathan here today, and I'm going to quickly explain Jonathan's agency, and then I'm going to have him chime in and kind of clean up where I missed the mark. So Jonathan has an agency that actually helps businesses with branding. I saw a lot of branding, and you guys are really experts on that. But you also focus on the lead gen and the actually getting the customers through the door. You're probably going to do about $250,000 in revenue this year, which is awesome. And you have a lot of amazing goals that you want to hit. And you've worked with some big companies like Coca-Cola and a couple others like that. So tell me what I got right, what I got wrong, and what I missed, Jonathan.
You know, I think you pretty much got it right. I'm impressed. But really, it's all about, for us, we're the gap fillers, we're the clarity providers. We really kind of try to help people truly understand what they're missing, find those gaps, and then how not only what we can do to fill it, but then how can we walk away and help you succeed. You know, it's awesome if we're there the whole time, but we want to help you achieve that success through marketing and whatever means necessary.
So what are some of your clients, how do they measure success? What are they looking at when you come in, or how are you helping them define that?
Yeah, so there's a lot of different ways that they kind of define it. There's the ones that do the simple lead gen, like get me people in the door, get me leads, get me somebody to sign up. But there's also the people that they want to help us. Their definition of success really is clarity. Like, help me understand what I'm missing here. Help me find that piece of the puzzle that I'm missing. You know, whether that is trying to help find our social media strategy, what we look like visually, help us look better. That is sometimes success for them. Sometimes it's just figuring out the broken pieces of the puzzle within a process system, within a marketing system. Everybody measures it differently, and I think that's what's awesome about this industry, about what we do, and what I get to work with every day. Everybody comes in with something new. So when you're dealing with that, so I've kind of played in that world early on. We kind of did a lot of different things, right? We do strategy, we do design, we do the actual ads, we do lead gen. One of the problems that I ran into is it was really hard to scale that early on, because it was a lot of things, right? There was a lot of different things, a lot of different companies. So how do you deal with that right now, or where are you at in that process, and how do you kind of solve that problem? For us internally, that scaling up, that's the big question right now. Right now, it's me. I have a team of about 6 people that help, but right now it's me inside of everything. I'm in every piece of the puzzle. I'm in every meeting. I'm having every conversation. I'm solving every problem. Slowly, we're getting out and away from that to kind of get more people in. That's a matter of helping finding the person you can trust. I mean, my name is literally on the business.
Yeah.
So it's trying to help find somebody that can do that. So finding the people that can get in, but process has been huge. Trying to figure out how we can scale and rinse and repeat something over and over and over again. That's been the real thing we're trying to get more and more into, so I can get up and out of every seat and sit in the place that can help us grow, and then in turn help our clients grow.
Yeah.
That get more people, more brains, more people in seats to help have better conversations.
That's a really good point. And one of the things that really helped us was, there's a couple of things. Number one was niching down. So that helped us, because when you work with one kind of company, that really helps. But then also the other thing, sometimes people are like, no, I don't want to niche down. I like working with different people, and I understand that. But then niching on your service. So we've actually done both. So we've niched on the client and we've niched on our service. And every time we've done that, our company's grown, because it helps us get clear. It also, we always do it towards what's most valuable to our client and most profitable for us. So as you begin to go through that journey, I think those are two great areas to start. Of like, I know for me, I'll just say how I was. I wanted to do everything. I never wanted to tell anybody no. So if someone comes to me and they're like, can you guys do video editing? It's like, sure, we'll figure it out. You know? Yeah, exactly.
Got it.
Because it's money, right? And so that helped us, to be honest with you, that got us really far. That got us to a really good point. But then we had to I had to like fight that later on and really fight that urge, because it was slowing us down, right? So it's like the team was getting blindsided. They weren't able to do the thing that they were good at. So and then I liked what you said there about the trusting teammates. That was a big thing that I struggled with at first. Tell me a little bit about where you're at with that and how you're working through that.
Yeah, it's definitely been a lot of trial and error. I think as everybody goes through, it's not only just trying to tap into my personal networks and finding people, but also, I mean, and the way the market is right now, I mean, I can hire anybody. It doesn't have to be somebody in my backyard. It could be someone across the world. It could be somebody states away. It's how can I build that trust with somebody, maybe who I may never meet for months, if not years in person, but somebody that I could bring on and trust. So it's been a lot of trial and error, but it's step by step, piece by piece, give them a little bit more. And as a leader, it's opening this agency has not only built me as a person, but I mean, as a leader, as a husband, a father, I mean, everything. It's really helped me open my eyes to like, okay, let the person, you have to just learn to let go some things to an extent. Obviously, there's some things you just can't, but someone may not be able to do something exactly like you do. Like maybe I've been doing graphic design for almost 15 years at this point. I could probably design circles around my best designer, but doesn't mean my best designer also is not good at his job. I just have to let them succeed and shine, and let them, and kind of learn from them too. And that's what another huge thing I've been trying to do is learn from my people, because they bring in a completely different perspective. My perspective is not always right. And then in turn, I can translate that into more success and more results for my clients in the same way.
Yeah, that's a good one. So a couple frameworks that I learned that helped me learn this, and I'm still learning it as we grow, is the 80% rule. So the 80% rule is, can somebody do it at least 80% as good as you? And here's the little nuance. You're an amazing designer. You do a great job, but you're also doing HR. You're also doing bookkeeping. You're also doing recruiting. You're also doing sales. So you're not really at your peak design game, right? Like if I took all that off your plate and said just do design for 5 hours a day, that would be your peak design state. So you're not. A lot of times we think we're at our peak, right? But we're really not, because we're getting spread so thin in our brains and other places. So this 80% person, if they can get 80% as good as you, and then they are 100% focused on that, that makes a huge difference, and that they can actually begin to improve things I've seen. And then the other thing was, I realized that I was worried about things that the client didn't actually notice. Right. So like, I'm sure that if I put 2 websites up and I was like, these are both beautiful, I love both of them, you could be like, nope, that one's way better and that one's way worse, and here's why, right? Because you're an expert. But probably 99% of the people in the world don't can't see that. Like most people don't even recognize that. And I've seen that across all industries where the expert, the technician really has that battle. And that's something that I had to really fight from a marketing angle, because I really knew a lot about lead gen. And I had to like, okay, are they still producing the leads? Yes. Are the clients happy? Yes. Did he do it exactly the way that I want him to? No. But who could tell, right?
Yeah, that's been something. Even I have this conversation with my wife at home. It's the same way. Like the things that all the way from the home improvement stuff that I do, even to the day-to-day stuff in marketing. Like we will never see things the same, but it doesn't mean one way is not correct or perfect. It's like you've just gotta get it out there. It's never gonna generate or do anything unless you just get it out into the world and test and go and do.
100%. I think that's the permission to fail, right? Like it's just like, hey, because that perfection side of us can take over, where it's just like, no, this isn't, it hasn't, and that drives people nuts. Like not just in work, but in every aspect of our lives. Like I want everything perfect, and it's like, nope. And really shifting that mindset to, nope, we're gonna fail first, and that's okay.
Yeah, I mean, I've almost lost clients to that sort of battle with perfection in the very beginning. Like we talked about how you're accepting everybody for $1, and then you go back and you're worrying about something month over month over month. It's like I got to the end of my contracts, and I'm like, we have these, offboarding conversations, other things, and I've realized quickly that things that I may have been waiting on or putting off or trying to get somebody perfect to fit or this perfect thing, they're like, it looked beautiful the first draft. Like we didn't need 10 more. Like it was perfect. It was fine. Yeah. So it's going to end up hurting the bottom line at the end of the day.
It does. Yeah. You got to get over that. And I think that actually really comes into play, especially when you start your agency too. I know your first job was at Circuit City, which is interesting because those are no longer around, right? Those have all shut down. But when did you, from Circuit City, so I'm assuming you're in your teens, to when you started your business, how did that work? How did that feel? And like, that's one of the biggest hangups that people have is just going from job to actually starting. How did you do that?
It was a lot. And I think I started when I was at Circuit City when I was 16 years old. It was my first job. What it taught me and exposed me to and helped me get to where I am today was just the people, learning about people, behaviors, things from a retail environment, service industry environment, about how people think and talk and act. It shaped what I wanted to do as well. I was fascinated with not only just design and marketing and how I was the one stocking the shelves, but I was also the one looking at, okay, how does this look? How does this planogram at the end cap look? And what is this going to do? I was that obsessive.
So you were already a marketer. You were already a branding guy right then.
Yeah, it was. And my dad he worked for, a large company in public relations. And so he had an eye for messaging and taught me that early on, the importance about branding and imagery. And I came way back probably in the early 2000s. I was doing like forum and message board designs for people's signatures and stuff and doing design work then. And it was an obsession. And so all the way up to this point, I've learned all of that, of how people act and talk and treat you, also how they treat the product.
So how'd you launch your business? How'd you launch your business? Like when did that actually, when you're like, okay, no more job and I'm actually running a business now?
Yeah, so it was when I worked for a few different companies in the marketing world. I was with my local chamber. I was working for a national consumer goods company, Beer Nuts Brand Snacks, for a while, helping oversee their marketing, their e-commerce efforts. And then I was kind of thrust into the job market working for an ad agency. And all during that time, I was seeing not only what was sort of like broken or not working and all these different things, and especially when I got to into an agency for the first time, I realized all those things. I was also kind of hustling on the side, doing some stuff, doing some things at night. I would go and work from 8 to 5, and then I'd hang out with my wife and son for a few hours, and it'd be 9 or 10 o'clock, and then I'd go and do some stuff, just kind of scratch an itch of things that I couldn't do in my day job and things that were holding me back. And it just kind of picked up from there. And then one day I decided to just say, screw it. And I made the jump. It was absolutely terrifying, but it's been one of the most rewarding things I think I've ever done.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. I say my story is very similar, but it's you just have to do it. Now, the one thing that I did notice you said is you got experience. So it's really cool to go work for somebody else and get experience. There's nothing wrong with that. And I encourage people when they're like, I don't know what to do. And I often tell people, just solve a problem. Go solve a problem. And they're like, well, I don't see any problems. It's like, you haven't been in the business world long enough, right? Like you could work in anybody's business and find a problem in 10 minutes of working there.
Oh, they're everywhere.
They're everywhere. So then if you solve that, if you say, hey, I can solve this for you, then you can get paid. And the bigger the problem and the harder it is to solve, the more you get paid. And that's all business is a value exchange of solving problems and doing it at higher levels. So I love that. And one of the things you said, you told me you were obsessed with fonts, which kind of ties into what you were talking about before. How does that play into, I know I've heard stories about like Facebook arguing for hours over which font they were going to use and things like that. How big of a factor does that really play in design and what you do and the results that you guys provide?
Yeah, so fonts have been this very weird little obsession I've had for years and years, not only from the business and marketing standpoint, but I'll go and I'll see things and I'll talk to people about them daily. Like I'm driving through and I'll notice that like some businesses use down in Florida, papyrus beach-like font, which is like the worst font in the entire world. Like I think people see it though, like their first impression, they use it and like, this is kind of beachy, hieroglyphic-y. You get down to the details of it. But really, I think what either the average consumer may not realize, but they're processing it without seeing it. Yeah. But that font choice, all the way down to those little details, the fonts, the colors, that leaves a lasting impression about whether to be taken seriously or not. If your brand is not serious, your fonts and colors and logos define all of that for you. Whether it's a social post, it's a flyer, it's the font that's on the logo on the side of your building. Everything kind of leads up to what that first impression is.
Yeah, I love that. The best way I've ever heard it described is like, have you ever landed on a website and you were going to buy something, but then you're like, nope, I'm not putting my information in here. I don't trust them, right? Like even if they had a third party payment option and all that stuff, you're just like, no, I'm good. Right. It's because somebody didn't take the time to actually build out the user experience, and that's lost in a lot of people's marketing and the way that people present things. And I think you guys do a great job of that. Now, one of the other things I know, let's talk about some of your goals. So you're on pace to hit $250,000 in revenue, and then you want to double that to next year. What's your roadmap look like for that, and how are you thinking through that? Because that's a big doubling is an awesome goal, and I totally think you could do it. But I'm interested in your mind, your thought process on how you're going to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to kind of ride this momentum wave. Also, like in the first year of business, I mean, we did a little less than 100,000, and now this year we're projected to do 250. And I'm trying huge. To keep that going and going and going. But also, it's to get there. Again, going back to what we've talked about with people and trust and process. I've spent way more time not trying to, honing my craft, but also learning and understanding the business side of things, investing more into an accounting firm to help me understand cash flow, trying to understand from a process standpoint of me submitting a request from the top down, knowing and going back to all of my previous jobs, what that looks like when it's terrible versus what it looks like when it's going to succeed and scale, what that looks like from top to bottom. And then also it's been a process of looking at what types of clients we're working with. Keeping some of those small like doctor's offices, like local shops. We work with anywhere from like board game stores, doctor's offices, small things, all the way up to the big dogs. How can we balance that and not only build our own portfolio to keep those going? And I think every business, and you probably went through the same thing, goes like this shedding and scaling process of you work with the small ones, you work your way up, and you work your way up. What does each step look like? And we've been trying to figure that out. Yeah,
it's tough. It really is tough. Like the scariest time for us is when we decided to only work in dental. And so that was like, we lost $100,000 in MRR like right away because we were just like, nope, we're not working with them anymore. And but you know what? We got all that back plus another one time over. really quickly under a year. And it was because
Nice.
we just got laser focused on who we were serving. And from a marketing perspective, and a lot of times marketers like us struggle because we're B2C marketers, right? Like we're usually working with people like to help them generate customers. So we get business perspective going straight to the consumer. The thing that's interesting about B2C is that you really are just a one-way message right to the decision maker, and they're usually buying right then or getting really close to buying. That's most of our clients. When you get into B2B, it's totally different because you are now marketing to an organization. The decision maker might be multiple people. They have budgets. They have checkoffs before they can get approval to do it. They have different pain points. People can lose their job by choosing you. Like no one's losing their job by going to the wrong barber, right? If you're helping marketing a barber. So there's all these different processes to marketing to these people. So what I've realized is we can be laser focused in our conversation and our marketing because we only work with one kind of customer. And that the more specific you can get on that, I think that really helps. And I know you're still discovering, right? And so a lot of agencies out there try to niche too soon. And they're like, well, we'll just pick a random niche. I don't think that's good either because you don't know who to serve yet.
No. Yeah, that's where we're battling that same thing right now. We don't want to niche down. We haven't niched down yet, but we're having this conversation too of what do like I enjoy, what does my team enjoy doing, what do we find the most success in? But we still have to keep the net kind of wide. Yes, we're defining and able to define now. Investing in my accountant has helped me and taught these things, like investing, like what sorts of projects and work are the most valuable.
Yeah.
What is the best service of time? Those sorts of things. So I have better defined what types of clients and budgets I can work with. Industry-wise, I mean, we're not there yet, and I kind of kick myself occasionally that I haven't gone there. But like what you said, we're not there.
Yeah, you'll get there. What kind of accounts do you see yourself leaning towards? Is there a specific kind of account that you guys are leaning towards?
I mean, I do fully enjoy working within some sort of like consumer goods spaces. I do enjoy that. I have a background in it. Some sort of either that or like within a service-based industries. Yeah. I do enjoy those as well. It's very easy, at least in my eyes, to sell a physical product sometimes than it is to sell a service. And as somebody that does sell a service, that's kind of backwards. But I'm very good at doing those things. So, but also, I mean, my roadmap has also changed frequently. Yeah. Last month, even my map has changed time and time again, and I have to keep it flexible. Keep it on a whiteboard instead of in permanent ink. It's got to change always.
Yeah. That's really good. That's a good point. As you're growing, especially early on, you're going to change. You're going to fail. You're going to get some things right. And then there's going to be things out of left field. Like for me, the industry that I'm in, no clue that I didn't have any plans to do it. It wasn't the fun road. I never said when I grow up, I want to be a dental marketer. You know what I mean? Like there was no, like when I started as an email marketing expert for restaurants. So you can see how I've
really
morphed over time into a lead generation for dentists. Now, one of the things that you said, you're actually filling this out. I love this. So I asked you a question, you're filling it out, and then you said, hey, if you want to explore new mediums to promote your brand or brand or podcast in unfamiliar yet promising areas such as gaming and streaming, let me know. I'd love to chat about that. So I don't know anything about streaming. And I don't know anything about, I do know a little bit about streaming. Like I've done TikTok Live. So that's the most I know about streaming.
Right.
And then gaming's awesome. I grew up as a gamer. I don't play a lot of games anymore, but I definitely grew up in that. My kids play them. So I'm fascinated by that because I don't look at it as work. I look at it as video games, you know what I mean? So I'm always fascinated by people who understand that space. So tell me, like, if I wanted to promote my podcast or promote my personal brand, streaming or gaming, like, what does that look like? Just tell me about it.
Yeah, so with gaming is this massive has seen a ton of growth over the last few years. I mean, it seems to be just doubling and doubling and doubling. I mean, their viewership numbers from major events are competing with the MLB, with NBA. Like, these massive teams and brands are partnering with these huge organizations. It's also kind of the Wild West at the same time right now. You know, some people see it as a lot of young kids with a lot of money, just kind of throwing things around. But also, I mean, you're seeing people that gaming streamers or influencers, it's kind of like influencer marketing at the same time. Like, people who are able to sit in front of, instead of posting on Instagram to 10,000 with 10,000 likes and getting in front of 500,000 people, you can get in front of an audience through places like Twitch, YouTube gaming, Facebook gaming, all these places where entertainers in real time are holding eyeballs in front of tens, if not hundreds of thousands of people in their bedrooms or even on main stages. People are doing this. And it's a way for brands, and brands are slowly figuring it out.
Yeah.
Because as like with every consumer, everybody can kind of pick up very quickly when something is, you know, here's a PR statement that somebody wrote, that somebody paid, you know, X amount of dollars for somebody to read. But there's also people that are doing killer jobs of making this very natural progression into the space. Kind of like how whenever you watch a TV show, there's a subtle placement of like the car they're driving, those sorts of things. Streamers are figuring out ways to do that same thing just in real time.
Yeah. So like, how would I've thought about streaming for my podcast, right? Like, what are your thoughts around that?
I think that, so there's a lot of people that do that. They have their whole audiences that they stream it live on Twitch in front of people. It's a great way for people to tune into a live experience. Like how you and I are having this conversation right now.
Yeah.
Can imagine instead of doing this like on it in front of people, talking in real time, getting feedback. It's, some people can do it. Some people have to start other ways. Some people find growth into gaming, like starting out generating short-term or long-form content on YouTube, making the natural progression into Twitch and live streaming because they want to see the behind the scenes of how it's done, of their favorite podcast is filmed, or how their favorite TV show is made. It's that sort of trying to find that natural progression. And also your audience has to be the right fit. Some people don't want to be logged into Twitch to watch things. So YouTube is getting bigger with it, with live streaming. So is Facebook. It's where does your audience fit and sit. TikTok lives, those are becoming more and more popular. About people and Twitch is giving out like API keys, or not Twitch, TikTok is giving out API keys.
Yeah, hard to get your hands on that.
Stream, not just from your phone.
Yeah.
It's so hard.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
I've been trying. I don't know.
So hard.
I don't understand it either. But I don't like doing the lives because I have to do them from my phone. You know what I mean? And I'm like, no, I want my phone. I want to do it from my camera. So like, let's talk about that a little bit. So like, if I wanted to stream, so Agency Growth Engine is the podcast we're on right now, and we're pre-recording this, but it's really to help agency owners, right? So that's our target. So you could be as young as 17, 18, and you could be older. And then would this work on a platform like Twitch? Would there be enough interest there on Twitch, or is that a little bit too much of a stretch? Is it going to be more of like a TikTok and that kind of platform?
I think Twitch might be a little bit of a stretch but also people probably listening or maybe watch Twitch know that Twitch isn't all gaming anymore. Twitch is like live streaming, like IRL or in real life events, people going to sporting events, talking through stuff. This type of podcast may do really well on like a YouTube live stream or a Facebook live stream. If you're uploading YouTube videos already, that's a great place to start there. And the one thing that people, whenever they get started into live streaming, either where they want to do it in the gaming space or whatever, they always look at, numbers. I'm sitting in front of, only 5 people are here, only 10 people are here. It's like you wouldn't turn down a room of your 5 best friends or 10 people in a room. Like, you just wouldn't. And it's a slow snowball effect. And then there's the strategy of community engagement, getting live questions in, rewarding people. I mean, we could talk forever about just that.
And then what about like gaming and NFTs and that kind of stuff? Where do you see the marketing world moving in that direction?
Well, NFTs and crypto is in a very dangerous place right now. But with gaming, there is so much untapped potential right now. There is, one of my clients right now is the USO, and I am working on helping to get them involved from a fundraising standpoint, but also from like a community growth and engaging in trying to find the crossover of like military, veterans, family, active duty, those sort of things within the gaming space. We have a lot
so like
of
Call of Duty,
them,
like that
duty,
kind of like Call of Duty,
kind of, but also there's like there are people that are in like retired or veterans that are streaming in front of people playing video games. People that are in the military are of course very proud of the service and the things they've created. They have fostered their own community within the military. They bring that over to gaming, and it's a way to not only raise awareness for them, but it's community and engagement building. We've helped and partnered with brands like Coca-Cola, with USAA, Oakley, who have partnered with them to work with veterans in the gaming space to reach that, because there was a market there for them to have these conversations and to introduce their brand in front of these people.
So it's figuring out where does so I want to reach these kind of people. So it's having a defined avatar and then figuring out where they're at in the gaming world, right? Because they're probably somewhere on there. You're usually going to be able to find them somewhere.
Right. I mean, you just got to look at your product, and either it doesn't necessarily have to fit into gaming. Like, I'm a sunglass brand. How do I fit into Call of Duty and military streamers? You have to look a little bit deeper than that. Same way you look at influencer marketing. If my sunglass brand is going to be, say, the brand that my favorite streamer is wearing, it's a clothes brand, it's a food they're wearing, promoting, talking about. There's brands that have done events inside games that I've seen a ton of success. Fortnite is massive, and they do tons of crossovers with that. They're on the upper echelon of
they
the
do
world.
Everything. They work with everybody.
Right. Yeah. It's all about it goes back to brand positioning.
That's awesome. So changing gears on you really quickly, you said one of the things that you've been working on is processes. Where are you at with your processes? How are you managing the team that you have? How do you plan on expanding those?
So right now it's trying to find. We finally are like getting everybody within one communication platform. We're all using Slack, for example, getting everybody in one place. Trying to figure out what platform or software we're using. We've switched between like the Mondays and Asanas and all these others, trying to land with one and stick into it. Right now it's Asana we're actually in right now.
We've used that in the past too.
And so
we use ClickUp right now.
Okay. And I think we've tried them all, but it's also we've tried things at different stages of the business. And so sometimes a platform is really robust and just not a good fit for where you're at right now. Sometimes you keep things extremely simple in the beginning, of what I learned very quickly. Platforms like Trello were very good for just simple marking off checklists, finding something that works. And we'll talk about one thing, but it might not work for somebody who's listening right now.
Exactly. Yeah. Just finding the thing that works for you and kind of working through that. And then how do you balance right now where you're at? Because I struggled with this big time early on, or for years, probably for like 7 years. I was horrible at this. Balancing profit and growth. Because when you're growing, you have to reinvest. But then that means you don't have profit, right? And so how are you balancing that? Because going from 99 to 250, that's a big jump, but that's a lot of more responsibility, a lot more overhead that you probably had to add too. So how are you working through that?
Yeah, it was making the mindset that some people take and some people don't. I tried to keep as much in the business as I possibly could in the very beginning. I had that, hard conversation with my wife about, okay, what is the bare minimum? Because my wife's a teacher. She doesn't make a ton already. And so what is the bare minimum we can take out to make sure that we can pay the bills, but also what can I do to keep in the business to then pay to have more people on? We tried to balance all those things. It also, whenever we grew, it was having that conversation with my accountant of being taxed as an LLC versus an S corp. What does that look like?
Yeah,
like that was a completely different world for me. And you can't just Google those things. You have to have those conversations.
Yeah.
But I mean, I break everything down. I'm constantly looking at cash flow, constantly looking at these things to make sure. And it's obsessive, but also if you want to make this work. You can't. Yes, I made $99,000, and now I'm about to make $250,000. I'm not going to go out and take that and buy a nicer car, buy a bigger house. It's like some people do that. It's just whatever, good for you, I guess. But make sure you've got to define those priorities very quickly to do those sort of things. And having an accountant or somebody that's an expert in it to lean on and trust was just massive.
Yeah, I read later on, I read a book called Profit First, and it really helped me change my mindset, because I always just was like, just dump it all back into the business. But then we got to a certain size where it was like, if I made a mistake or we made an error, I couldn't float it on the credit card. You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't just like, hey, yeah, I'll just clean this up and put it on my credit card, because it might be $250,000 and you can't just pull a line of credit that easily for that, and especially multiple times. So then what Profit First teaches, and I wish I would have done this earlier, was the basic formula, like if you go to an accountant will say, okay, your revenue minus expenses equals profit. So that's a normal math formula. What Profit First teaches is revenue minus profit equals expenses. So your profit dictates your expenses rather than the other way around. And then what you do is, when you're in growth mode, you just lower the profit, right? So you're just like, we're only going to put away 5%. And you're just putting it into a cash account for the company, right? And you're just putting that off to the side. And then you have that there as reserves. You pay your taxes off of it. He has a whole strategy on it. But then when you're in a better place, then you can have more profit, right? And so that really helped me, and we implemented that, and that's been huge. And I wish I would have done it sooner, but it's really hard especially early on, because you're just putting everything that you have into it. But one of the things you said there was having that conversation with your wife. How have you kind of balanced that? Your wife, your family, you have a kid, you have to work a lot. I mean, I worked 16 hours a day when I started, easy. No, I'm not joking. I know sometimes people say that and say, you didn't really work. I really worked 16 hours a day. How do you balance that right now with where you're at?
It is hard. It's very hard. The first year of the business, I mean, I didn't take a vacation in the first year. I was working weekends, making sure it came down to, I'm not an organized person by any stretch. So also trying to make sure try to use calendars as best I can. I mean, it sucks, but like, if you have to write down and go down to the details of scheduling time with your family, do it. Like, if that's going to work for you, don't be ashamed. Like, if you have to make it so you can keep things balanced and still have those conversations with your wife, with your son, my toddler who's growing up and seeing, dad's working all the time or dad's doing that. It's very, very hard, but keeping things open, honest, and transparent the whole time.
Do you work at home?
Was absolutely incredible. I don't. I used to, and I started this, and now I needed the separation.
Yeah. So
very badly. Like, the pandemic was great and fun at the beginning working at home, but my mind works better when I have a space that I can go into. And the first thing I did when I was seeing a better reoccurring revenue at a different amount, I'm in a co-working space where I can rent out space month to month, and that's what worked for me. It doesn't work for everybody, but it's an expense that I put in so it works for me.
I know one of your goals is one of your goals right now in your business, which is a really good goal, and I didn't get there until just a couple years ago. So it took me a long time to get there. Is you said, I want to just be able to leave for a week and not worry about the business and the fires and all those kind of things. And I think a lot of people, tons of business owners, not just agency owners, tons of business owners never ever get there. What do you see as your roadmap to get there? What's stopping you right now from getting there, and what things are you working on to get there?
It all does come down to process, and people have said it to me over and over again as I started this business, and they were saying, write down everything that you do day to day, that you do, so that you can pass it on. And that the people I've heard it called like the Mack truck theory too, where, if you're taken out by a truck and something happens, can things still go on? Yeah. And that is what I'm trying to work towards, is that if somebody were to log in as me today, would they be able to pick up the pieces and make it go? Now, of course, I'm not going to step away for forever, but then it goes down to like a week's vacation. Can I leave? Is my team going to be able to check and answer the emails, look and see where client work is at? Okay, if I need to set up a Facebook ads campaign, can this team member do it? If a designer needs contacted, can we do that? It's all process.
Yeah,
everything.
That's really good. You know, someone told me this. This is when it clicked for me, and I really started working on this. They told me I had a friend, they were going on vacation, and they owned a business, and they were going to overseas for a month. I said, "You're going on vacation for a month?" And first of all, I don't like taking vacations. Like, I enjoy traveling a little bit, but after about like 3 days, I get bored. So I wasn't as interested in that they got to travel for a month. Like, I like working. But I was more interested in, like, how are you leaving the business? And they made this comment to me, and it, like, really shocked me. They said, "Gary, if your business can't survive without you for a month, then you don't have a real business." And I was just like, oh, man, okay.
That hits.
And, it hits hard, right? Because, and I get what they're saying. I did have a real business, and we were making good money. But it was, I get what they were saying. Like, if I disappear, then the business disappears. Business is really me, and I have to be tied to it all the time. And so at that moment, I really started focusing on doing the same thing that you're doing. Now, the one thing that I added gasoline onto your strategy is I hired a project manager, and then I would bring the project manager in with me, and I'd say, document, and they didn't know anything about marketing. Nothing, right? They were a project manager from another industry. And I said, okay, document the process that I'm going through right now. And they're like, okay. And they document it. And then they would come back and ask questions. And they say, "Gary, why did you say this right there?" And I'm like, "Oh, it's because of da-da-da-da." So they asked all the questions that I assumed were just common knowledge, but they weren't. They were me doing it for years and years and years over and over. And so they would help me pull everything out, and they would build these SOPs that I was just like, "Oh, you mean that one thing that I did for 1 hour is like 7 pages?" And they're like, "Yeah, you can't do it otherwise. Like, if you, this is the bare bone minimums of what you need to know to do that thing that you did." And I didn't realize that. I thought everything I was doing is just like, it's easy. And it's not. It's years of compiling knowledge. That really helped speed up that process for me.
Honestly, that the content that you've made put out on TikTok, that's the reason why I gravitated to you so much, because you talk about it. And that's where I knew I was at in the business. And that's how I found you. And that's what I'm trying to implement now with my own project manager, my business manager named Shelby. She thinks in that way. That is her strength. And that's where I have to, and now I'm learning to lean into that, to have her think through that and teach me how to think that way. Because it has to be done.
Well, and the other thing, Jonathan, is like, you'll love work more. So I love working way more now because I get to do what I love, and then other people are doing what they love. I'm not being forced to go do this thing and like if you said, "Gary, document the process of podcasting," or whatever, I'm like, no, like that's like the worst thing in the world, right? But like I have project managers that are really good at that, and they enjoy doing it, and they build out the whole system. And then I say, "Okay, we're done. Now let's go to the next thing, and let's process the next thing." So that's huge. And I know you're going to, Shelby's going to be the reason you win. Like, Shelby's going to be the one that puts those processes in place and allows you to get to that week vacation that you want to get to. And is there anything else that I didn't ask you that I should have asked you?
Well, we went over the gaming, went over fonts, went over all these different things. We had pretty good conversations all over the place. I loved it.
Awesome. Where can people find you if they want to learn more about your company, what you're doing, different opportunities that you have? Where can they find you?
So you can find us, you can find Strupek at strupek.com. It's our website. We just did a brand new facelift on the website, so everything is up and live. It looks nice and polished. Again, hopefully that obsession paid off looking over that. We are also at Strupek or at I am Strupek or Strupek Marketing. We haven't found that consistent across social media yet, but all the links are on our website. Go there, learn more about us. You can see all about our work, and whether you want to pick our brain, just have a conversation about it, I'd love to sit down and chat with you, just like I did with Gary. This was so much fun.
Awesome, man. Well, I appreciate you sharing the good parts, the bad parts, where you're growing. It's so helpful. And all these, I mean, there's tons of other people who are in the same boat. I've been there. I'm going through it right now. You're going through it right now. Like, it's amazing when you really share and get transparent like that. So I really appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for having me.
Thanks, man.